Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. You will not believe what Jonathan Williams has done to me. He is, of course, with one of our great sponsors, the American Legislative Exchange Council. But if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, if you look over on John's right shoulder there, he's managed to get a cutout of the state of Michigan. And we all know that the top of Michigan belongs to Wisconsin. But John, we're gonna have to shut the shot down if that thing is there next week. Welcome. It was great seeing you on Wednesday night. How are you?
Well, great to see you, my friend. And it was wonderful having dinner together and talking about all the big, beautiful issues going on here in Washington and across the states.
I got to tell you, though, I choked this morning. I got a question on America's Newsroom with Dana Perino and Bill Malugin, and I wanted to cite rich states, poor states, and I ended up botching the name, but getting the states right: Utah and Florida, and at the bottom, California, because we were talking about New York's mayoral race. How bad do you think New York City can get, Jonathan Williams? Your handle on X is tax economist. They can't go lower than 50. Maybe you can develop a new sub-zero ranking for cities.
Well, there's always President Obama's 57 states, if you remember. So there
Yes.
always could go worse, right? We could always compete with others. I mean, you don't want to be in the same sentence as Cuba and Venezuela, which is, I'm afraid, where New York City would go under Mr. Mondami. Have just the horrible, outside, of course, his just horrific anti-Semitic rhetoric and comments that he's made in the past that should just disqualify anyone for being a major policy player in the United States. Outside of that, his socialist ideas on nationalizing or having a government-run grocery store chain idea. I mean, talk about bringing back the bread lines, right, from the days of socialism. And so, New York is in bad shape. New York is already 50th out of 50 in rich states, poor states, and it's been that way for nearly each and every edition. It gave it up only a couple of years to Vermont. And so you really wonder, this is probably the only man in America that could make people like AOC look conservative. So maybe New York, the cooler heads will prevail, and there'll be some discussions of others that will unite kind of a more rational common sense agenda, even if it's one that's a Democrat that's for common sense. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I've begun the maybe Eric Adams isn't so bad series. Anyway, after this segment gets done, and I praise Utah and Florida pursuant to richstatespoorstates.com, I get an email from Jason Chaffetz, former congressman, now Fox News host, saying, "You wouldn't believe Utah, Hugh. The affordability here is a real problem. We haven't got enough houses for our kids." So, Jonathan, where does that figure when you do your rankings, entry-level housing? Because it really does tell you where a state will be 30 years from now if young families can get into a house.
Well, it's a big question everywhere. And, it's one of the things that we've talked about many times, property taxes. Utah would be that much more unaffordable if it wasn't for its ALEC model truth and taxation on property taxes that's on the books and has been for over 35 years. But you look at the issues of geography, really, and this gets to Senator Mike Lee's point. I know it's a big debate right now in Washington, whether the federal government should own 60% of Utah's land area. I think it's a big unforced error that the federal government has not given back the states and the people of the states the land as promised. You go to Nevada, it's more like 80 or 90% owned by the federal government. So when you have a constraint like that, you have the issues of the valley around Salt Lake City, and you only have so much area of housing that you can build. It's no surprise that you have some affordability issues, and that's just a constraint that until Senator Lee and some folks in D.C. get that figured out, there's not much you can fix necessarily from a policy level at the state level.
At least don't get in their way. We've got some endangered species listing in Utah, which are terrible as well. But Jonathan, I want to talk to you about the brand new study on labor policy rankings. And I don't want people's eyes to glaze over. I found this fascinating because I know what right to work means to the growth of a state. Would you explain what ALEC is studying here and who won these rankings and why, and who lost these rankings and why?
Well, it's a great report, States That Work, that you can get at alec.org. And this is an annual publication similar to Rich States, Poor States, or our education publication on education freedom that we've talked about many times, for states to rank themselves on policies like right to work and like occupational licensing issues, and like the idea of collective bargaining and how much power public sector unions should have. I mean, this is a great Utah story from this year, where Utah this session became only the third state in the country to say public sector workers probably shouldn't have the idea of being able to collectively bargain. That is something that should be devoted just for private sector workers, because at the end of the day, if you're a public sector worker, who are you bargaining with? Where are taxpayers at that table between government and between public sector unions? So the people that come out last in that equation, unfortunately, are America's hardworking taxpayers. So Utah does very well in that report, coming in number 2 nationally. Arizona gets the honors there, being the top-ranked state in the country. But Hugh, and when it comes to why it matters, I mean, this is a yes or no issue for many states, and why some states are creating jobs and growing and other states aren't. In fact, we share a variable of right to work in the Rich States, Poor States publication, because we think it's that important for the growth of states. And, while Ohio, Hugh, has never passed right to work in recent years, Michigan did. And we had some really strong growth from that. Unfortunately, the progressives that took over Lansing just repealed it. We've got our great speaker, Matt Hall, from the ALEC board trying to fix that. But it's an important determinant. A lot of job creators will say, I'm not going to even consider a state for an investment unless it's a right to work state.
It's economic suicide for a state to hang on to the mandatory unionization rules. John, I want to make sure we end with a high note this week. New Hampshire became the 17th state in the union to embrace universal school choice. Would you explain what they did and what you expect it will mean in New England?
Well, it's an incredible victory. Number 17, the Live Free or Die state, is living up to its motto to give every parent, every student the opportunity to apply for an education savings account, to have dollars to spend on the public, private, charter, homeschool of their choice, to go and have that real flexibility for those Granite State residents. And something that Governor Ayotte there has been a big champion of, Senator Sullivan, Representative McDonald. It was a great team effort, and it's not the easiest state for conservative ideas, but number 17 across the board, truly, Hugh, it couldn't have been done without the hard work of so many across this country and so many of the ALEC men and women out there leading this effort. It's just, if we would have said 5 years ago, we would have even have been at 5 states that were universal school choice. We'd have gotten laughed out of the room. And here we are at number 17, an incredible victory, the first in New England of hopefully many, many more in the years to come.
It develops momentum, and I think that's what's happening with school choice, and it's thanks to ALEC and a lot of legislators. If you're a state legislator, married to one, parent of one, child of one, brother or sister of one, make sure they belong to ALEC, ALEC.org, and get the ALEC State of the States newsletter, alec.org/Hugh. Thank you, Jonathan.